A truly great game stays with you long after the end credits roll, leaving an empty feeling you just can't shake. If you're looking for emotionally charged narratives and unforgettable choices that genuinely move you, here are 20 story-driven games you must play.
Do you hear them? They're calling for me.
Senua's psychosis isn't a twist here. It's not a jump scare gimmick they save for Act 2. It's the entire foundation of Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice, and Ninja Theory built it that way on purpose, working directly with neuroscientists, psychiatrists, and people who actually live with psychosis, so the portrayal never feels exploitative or dramatized for shock value. And here's where it gets interesting. The game refuses to separate story from systems. Combat pacing, puzzle logic, even that binaural audio whispering furies directly into your ears, all of it is Senua's mind, externalized. You're not fighting monsters so much as fighting alongside her own condition. And the ending? Look, I won't spoil it, but it's rare. Most games cure the affliction by the credits roll. This one doesn't do that. Senua learns to function with it, not without it, which might be the most mature, most quietly hopeful resolution mental illness has ever gotten in this medium.
That's what you want, isn't it?
Okay, after getting emotionally wrecked by Senua, I want to talk about something that goes the complete opposite direction. Outer Wilds doesn't hand you a story. It hands you a 22-minute time loop and a curious little spaceship, then gets out of your way entirely. There's no quest log, no forced order. You just explore and piece together an ancient mystery from dead languages, old recordings, and ruins that clearly used to mean something. The writers were obsessive about show, don't tell. Almost every revelation happens because you found a place yourself, not because a character explained it to you. That's the mechanic, really. Curiosity itself is what drives you forward. Discovery is the reward, full stop. And that's rarer than it sounds. And by the end, it stops being a mystery game and turns into something quieter, a meditation on mortality that sneaks up on you without a single character ever stating it outright.
Hello, Two Forks Tower.
Hello? Whoever this is?
It's Henry, right?
Yeah.
I'm Delilah.
Firewatch strips things down to basically one mechanic, a walkie-talkie. That's it. Henry and Delilah never actually meet face-to-face for most of this game, and yet critics keep calling their relationship one of the most believable ones ever written for a video game, carried entirely by voice performance and dialogue timing, not cutscenes. It's just two lonely people talking, and somehow, that's enough to hold an entire story together. Here's the thing, though. The game sets up a big mystery box conspiracy, the kind you'd expect from a wilderness thriller, and then it deliberately doesn't pay it off that way. That frustrated some players. Well, frustrated undersells it. It flat out divided people. But I think that's the point. Real isolation doesn't resolve like a thriller plot. And the Wyoming wilderness itself does a lot of quiet work here too, mirroring Henry's own emotional retreat. So the environment becomes a character in its own right.
I need you to feel safe out here.
We are all the result of the choices we've made.
You know the drill with choice-based games by now. Make a big decision, watch the game quietly funnel you back to the same three outcomes anyway. Detroit Become Human decided to actually commit to the bit. Quantic Dream built dozens of genuinely divergent paths across three separate Android protagonists, each one exploring freedom, empathy, and prejudice from a different angle, instead of filtering the whole theme through one perspective. And then there's the flowchart. After every chapter, it shows you the paths you didn't take, branches you'll never see, choices that just quietly closed forever. It's such a simple device, but it makes consequence feel tangible in a way most branching narratives only pretend to. Look, the writing isn't subtle about its themes. It's not trying to be. But mechanically backing up your choices matter with actual proof on screen, that's the part that stuck with people. And it's still one of the best executions of that idea in the genre.
My name is Connor. I'm the android sent by Cyberlife.
Welcome to Night City.
Hot take. Cyberpunk 2077 is one of the best written RPGs of its entire generation. And if you checked out after the 2020 launch, you're working off outdated information at this point. The 2.0 overhaul and Phantom Liberty rebuilt this thing from the ground up, and 2026 retrospectives keep treating it as a full redemption story rather than a cautionary tale. But here's what actually makes the writing hit. V's story runs on a literal ticking clock, a terminal condition, which gives every relationship and every choice a weight most open-world RPGs never earn, because their stakes rarely feel personal. Phantom Liberty pushes that further with morally messy, no clean answers writing around identity, surveillance, and what chasing power actually costs someone. It's not a redemption arc that pretends the launch never happened either. It's a game that grew into exactly what it always wanted to be, and the mechanics finally caught up to match the ambition of the story.
You know what sucks about dying?
After Cyberpunk's high, let's go somewhere a lot darker. SOMA isn't scary because of monsters jumping out at you. Well, okay, some of that happens too. But the real dread comes from a question the game refuses to let you off the hook for. What actually makes you, you? Consciousness? Continuity? Or just a copy of memory wearing your face? Frictional Games builds horror out of philosophy here, and it works because the mechanics keep forcing morally uncomfortable decisions about identity that have no clean answer. Most survival horror gives you obvious right choices. This one doesn't, and that's deliberate. Come to think of it, that's what separates SOMA from basically every other horror game. The tension isn't, will I survive? It's, what am I, actually? And the ending gets discussed constantly. Not because it's shocking, but because it follows logically from rules the game spent its whole runtime carefully establishing. It's quiet, it's devastating, and it earns every bit of that. Ghost of Tsushima builds its entire story around one central tension: honor versus effectiveness. Jin Sakai is a samurai raised on the code, and the moment he starts adopting guerrilla tactics to actually win, that internal conflict stops being subtext and becomes something you're making decisions about constantly. Here's what I appreciate. The game doesn't just tell you Jin is conflicted, it dramatizes that through your own tactical choices. Sneak and strike from the shadows, or stand and fight with honor. That's not flavor text. That's the theme playing out through your controller. And between the bigger revenge plot beats, there's this whole layer of folklore, haiku, quiet poetry moments that give you room to breathe and reflect. The relationship with his uncle, Lord Shimura, deserves a mention too. It's a mentor bond that gets more complicated as things escalate, not simpler, which really isn't how these stories usually go for open-world epics. Usually in these games, you get to be the hero. You make the noble choice, the game rewards you, everyone claps. The Last of Us Part 1 doesn't play along with that. Joel and Ellie's relationship is built almost entirely out of small, mundane moments. Bad jokes, quiet walks, the stuff most games would cut for pacing. And that's exactly why it lands so hard later. Critics point to it as a turning point for how the industry approaches character writing altogether. And the mechanics support that intimacy directly. Scavenging, crafting, sneaking together through danger builds a survival bond that dialogue alone couldn't sell. Then there's the ending, which I won't spoil, but it's one of the first mainstream moments where the protagonist makes a call the player themselves might not have made. You don't get to argue with it, you just have to sit there with it. And the remake's environmental storytelling, empty homes, scattered notes, only sharpens that gut punch further.
A great show for you here tonight. Alan Wake, one of my all-time favorite writers, and this on the show.
Picture this: a writer whose own fiction starts bleeding into reality, and the game builds its entire level design around that idea, instead of just talking about it. That's Alan Wake 2, and Remedy pulls off metafiction here in a way that could have felt gimmicky in worse hands. It doesn't, because the story within a story structure is baked directly into how you play, not just how the plot reads. What really gets me is how candid it is about creative obsession, about what fame and unfinished work do to a person's mind over years. That's Alan's whole descent, basically. And splitting the game between him and FBI agent Saga Anderson works better than it has any right to. One half is a grounded detective mystery, the other's surreal psychological horror, and they slowly start informing each other in ways that reframe both threads. It's ambitious, it's a little unhinged structurally, and somehow it all holds together by the end.
Why are we written into the story?
Here's another hot take that I don't think gets said enough. No trilogy has matched what Mass Effect pulled off with long-form consequence. Choices from the very first game, who you saved, who you let die, small conversations that felt throwaway, can still echo in dialogue by the third game, years later in real development time. That's an absurd amount of narrative bookkeeping to commit to, and that's a rare kind of commitment for any studio to actually follow through on. The Legendary Edition specifically cleaned up pacing and tonal whiplash, especially around the original second game structure, so the whole arc now reads as one cohesive story, instead of 3 games awkwardly stitched together. And Shepard's story was never really the whole appeal anyway. It's the squad mates. Each one gets a fully realized arc worth following on its own, which is why people still argue about which crew member's storyline hit hardest more than a decade later. Kingdom Come Deliverance II doesn't do the Chosen One thing. No prophecy, no destiny, no fantasy framing at all. Just Henry, a lowborn nobody navigating real historical medieval power struggles where nobody owes him anything. And critics have called that grounded approach genre-leading, not good for an RPG, which is a distinction worth sitting with for a second. It actually won the BAFTA for Best Narrative in April 2026, beating out Expedition 33 for that specific category. So this isn't just me hyping it up. Mechanically, dialogue and reputation systems reinforce that powerlessness constantly. You can't just talk your way out of everything because you're the protagonist. The world doesn't care who you are yet. But the real emotional backbone here is Henry's friendship with Hans, a bond complicated by class differences that keeps evolving rather than sitting static for 60 hours. It's slow, it's dense, and it earns every bit of that density.
Outlaws and bandits!
Meant for this life.
Oh crap!
Last I checked, we're all a bunch of thieves.
After the muddy, grounded politics of Kingdom Come, let's swing hard into blockbuster territory. Uncharted 4: A Thief's End still manages to feel personal underneath all that globe-trotting spectacle. And that's because it reframes the entire series around Nathan Drake's inability to actually walk away from this lifestyle, and what that costs the people who love him. The brotherly relationship with Sam gives what could have been a straightforward treasure hunt plot real emotional stakes, grounding the action in something more familial than find the gold. What surprised a lot of people coming off the earlier games was the pacing. Quieter scenes, conversations on a porch, home life moments that slow everything down on purpose. That's rare in a genre built around constant momentum, and it gives the story room to actually breathe between set pieces. It's still Uncharted at its core, gunfights and all, but it knows exactly when to put the spectacle down.
Live your life. Or we can just end it right here.
I'd like to tell you about a dream I
Redacted files, found documents, live-action interstitials ripped straight from a corporate training video. Control tells its story like an SCP Foundation case file come to life, piecing together the Federal Bureau of Control's history at your own pace. What I love about this one is the tone. Horror filtered through office memos and paperwork instead of screaming monsters, which really shouldn't work as well as it does, but somehow it just does. The mundane, procedural angle on the supernatural is easily the freshest thing about this game. And underneath all that abstract, reality-bending lore, Jesse Faden's search for her missing brother gives you a simple thread to hold on to, an emotional through line that keeps the weirder stuff grounded instead of spiraling off into total incomprehensibility. You could get lost in the bureaucratic lore for hours without caring much where the main story even goes, but Jesse's search always pulls you back, and that balance is harder to pull off than it looks.
That maybe it was over. Come on.
At its heart, A Plague Tale Requiem is about what happens when protecting someone you love turns into something else entirely. Amicia's relationship with her little brother Hugo is the emotional center of this whole series, and the sequel specifically pushes harder into the moral cost of that protection as the stakes keep climbing around them. Here's the smart part mechanically. Stealth and resource scarcity constantly force you to make small sacrifices for Hugo's safety, so you feel that protective instinct in your hands, not just in cutscenes. The blend of real 14th century plague history with supernatural horror gives the whole thing a texture most games don't bother with. Grounded historical dread sitting right next to escalating fantastical stakes. And what really gets me is how the story quietly interrogates its own premise. Protection can curdle into something else if you take it far enough, and that's a much messier target than a simple protect the kid story usually aims for.
We are perpetually trapped in a never-ending spiral of life and death.
Quick question. When's the last time New Game Plus actually mattered to the story, instead of just being a difficulty toggle for people who want harder enemies? NieR Automata builds its entire structure around multiple playthroughs that reveal completely different perspectives and reframe events you thought you already understood. That's not padding, that's the whole point. Route B isn't just Route A again with a new coat of paint. The game also can't stop interrogating its own genre. Action RPG conventions, save systems, even its own credit sequence get pulled apart until the whole thing becomes a meditation on purpose and meaning that goes way past typical existentialist window dressing. And here's what sneaks up on you. The android and machine cast provoke real empathy, despite not being human, or maybe because they're not human. Using that outsider angle to explore war, identity, and free will in a way a purely human cast probably couldn't pull off nearly as well.
There are a few things I need to make sure you understand.
Most horror movies expect you to just watch dumb decisions happen to characters you can't do anything about. Until Dawn fixes that by putting the decisions in your hands. And it's still one of the best examples of the branching horror movie format because of it. The butterfly effect system means small early choices, stuff that feels trivial in the moment, cascade into wildly different fates by the end. The writing knows exactly what slasher tropes it's playing with too, and leans into that self-awareness deliberately, which keeps a cast that starts out as pretty broad archetypes actually interesting to follow.
But here's the real difference from other choice-based games. Anyone can die, permanently, based on what you do. No safety net, no guaranteed survivors. That single mechanical decision generates more genuine tension around character survival than most branching narratives ever manage to build. Yes, I'm aware that there's a remake, but I think the original version has superior audio and atmosphere.
We're going to make things worse for everyone.
After the individual life or death stakes of Until Dawn, let's zoom way out. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 doesn't threaten one character at a time. It threatens everyone, on a schedule, with a yearly culling that kills anyone of a specific age like clockwork. And let's clear something up first. This fully released back in April 2025, it sold over 8 million copies, and it swept 2025's Game of the Year conversations, including a win at the Game Developers' Choice Awards in March 2026. So any old wait-and-see takes on this one are just outdated at this point. What that built-in mortality does structurally is fascinating. Every character already has a known deadline, which shapes tone and motivation from the very first hour, instead of building towards stakes later. And the ending, without spoiling a thing, refuses the clean, crowd-pleasing wrap-up you'd expect. People are still arguing about it in 2026, which really just tells you the writing did its job. Baldur's Gate 3's biggest achievement, according to basically every critic who's touched it, is reactivity. Companions remember choices you made dozens of hours earlier and react to them accordingly. And the sheer branching complexity Larian pulled off here is close to unmatched in the RPG space. Look, I've played a lot of party-based RPGs, and usually you get 1 or 2 companions with real arcs, and the rest are set dressing. Not here. Every single companion has a fully written personal arc tied to their own trauma or moral conflict, and you can pursue it, ignore it, or actively make it worse depending on how you play. That's the mechanical trick that makes the ensemble actually land emotionally. It's not scripted the same way twice for everyone watching. And the writing treats your choices as truly consequential, rather than cosmetic dressing, since decisions can permanently change who survives, who allies with you, and who ends up standing against you by the finale.
In mere moments, all that you have dreaded.
After the sprawling ensemble cast of Baldur's Gate 3, let's narrow things down to just 2 people and 1 continuous shot. God of War, the 2018 one, reinvents the entire franchise around a father-son dynamic between Kratos and Atreus, turning a series that used to be about pure rage into one about a parent, trying, and often failing, to model better behavior for his kid. That single continuous camera critics kept praising isn't just a technical flex either. It's a narrative choice, keeping the whole story feeling unbroken and intimate without a single traditional cutscene cut breaking the tension.
Come to think of it, that unbroken camera might be the most underrated storytelling tool in the whole game. And Kratos' old Greek mythology baggage gets used as deliberate contrast against this new Norse setting, letting the writing dig into generational trauma and just how hard it actually is to escape a violent past you've already lived through once.
Understand?
Nothing means more to me than this game. I would kill.
You'd expect the outlaw underdog story to end with the gang winning, or at least going out in some kind of blaze of glory everyone can cheer for. Red Dead Redemption 2 isn't interested in that. Arthur Morgan's arc is one of the best written character studies in games, period. A man slowly reckoning with all the harm he's caused as the outlaw lifestyle he's devoted his life to collapses around him, piece by piece. What makes that land, mechanically, is pacing. The game is slow, deliberately so, and it uses mundane camp life dialogue, overheard conversations, small chores, quiet nights around the fire, to build out an entire found family dynamic among the gang, so their eventual fractures feel earned instead of sudden. And here's the real thesis buried in it. The outlaw code is already dying at the very start of the story. The tension was never really, will they win? It's watching people refuse to accept a world that's already left them behind.
It is us or him!
That's all the time I have for this video. So which of these story games left the biggest impact on you? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this list, drop a like and subscribe for more deep dives into unforgettable video games. Thanks for watching.